Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Efrem Graham. Ahead today, countdown to war. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu orders the Israeli military to build up its forces in and around Gaza and prepare to go back to war with Hamas if it doesn't release its hostages by Saturday. We're going to bring you the story from Jerusalem. An American comes home after being held in Russia following negotiations with the Trump administration. Evangelical Christians facing growing persecution in the midst of the war in Ukraine. We're going to look at a new documentary showing their struggles and their hope. And on the lighter side, a visit to a different type of restaurant with a unique combination of international flavors on its menu. All those stories and more right now on CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
We begin this busy Wednesday in the Middle East, where Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says his country could be back to war with Hamas if it doesn't meet President Trump's Saturday deadline to release all the hostages. As Chris Mitchell now reports from Jerusalem, President Trump's ultimatum and Israel's actions raise the stakes in the war between the Islamist group and the Jewish state.
After a 4-hour security cabinet meeting, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu issued an ultimatum.
If
Hamas does not return our hostages by Saturday noon, the ceasefire will end and the Israeli Defense Forces will return to intense fighting until Hamas is finally defeated.
It's unclear whether Netanyahu means all the remaining hostages or just the 3 Hamas have been set to free Saturday before postponing their release. One thing is clear: Israel's ready to go back to war in Gaza.
Last night, I instructed the IDF to amass forces inside and surrounding the Gaza Strip. This action is being carried out at this hour and will be completed very soon.
Speaking with reporters in the Oval Office Tuesday, President Donald Trump said he doubts Hamas will free any hostages by Saturday.
I don't think they're going to make the deadline personally. I think they want to play tough guy, but we'll see how tough they are.
In a meeting with Jordan's King Abdullah at the White House, Trump repeated his plan of resettling Gazans in Jordan and Egypt after Hamas is defeated.
We're not going to buy anything. We're going to have it, and we're going to keep it, and we're going to make sure that there's going to be peace.
One reporter asked the president under what authority he would take over Gaza.
Under the U.S. authority.
Trump wants Jordan and Egypt and other nations to take in the people presently residing in Gaza, an issue the king sidestepped in the Oval Office.
Well, I think, as I said earlier, the president is looking at Egypt coming to present their plan. As I said, we will be in Saudi Arabia to discuss how we can work with the president and with the United States. So let's wait until the Egyptians can come and present it to the president and not get ahead of ourselves.
King Abdullah has promised to take in 2,000 sick Gazan children, but after the meeting, he issued a statement opposing resettling Palestinians outside Gaza. Egypt's President el-Sisi also rejects the plan and canceled a scheduled meeting with Trump next week over the issue.
And Chris Mitchell joins us now from Jerusalem with more. Chris, as you reported, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is saying there will be intense fighting in Gaza if the hostages are not released by Saturday. Is the current situation essentially a countdown to a resumption of the war?
Efrem, it really is, and especially if Hamas doesn't respond and if they don't release any or the hostages on Saturday. How will they respond? It remains to be seen. They did say they were going to not release any hostages a few days ago, which led to President Trump's ultimatum. Then they said they would continue with the hostage deal as negotiated, but it was too far gone by then. We see that President Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu seem to be on the same page. It remains to be seen again, Efrem, what will those consequences look like? But right now, the IDF is amassing troops on the Gaza border preparing to go in and fight Hamas once again. The other big question, Efrem, is what about the fate of the hostages? If fighting resumes and the deal is off, what will Hamas do to the remaining, I believe now, 79 hostages? So is Israel and Israelis are really holding their collective breath until we'll see what happens on Saturday.
A twofold question here, Chris. If the fighting does begin again, any idea how long it will last? And is Netanyahu determined to eliminate Hamas as much as possible?
Well, to the first question, Ephraim, it really is unclear how long it will last. I think a lot of people didn't realize it would last 16 months into the war since October 7th. No one, I believe, anticipated it may take this long or how it would unfold. I don't think people anticipated exactly how much of a weapons terror base Gaza was, with 400 miles of tunnels and weapons in almost each and every building. So it's gone a lot longer, I think, than people expected, or how gut-wrenching it would be for many. On the other question, I believe Netanyahu is determined to eliminate Hamas totally. That's the goal of the war, to defeat Hamas militarily, not allow it to remain in Gaza to rule. Many here in Israel are unified by that. One interesting proposal by Finance Minister Smotrich, he's saying for every hostage that killed, Israel should take over 5% of Gaza. But to your question, we don't know how long the fighting will take if it resumes. And Netanyahu, I think, in the cabinet, the current coalition government wants to destroy Hamas militarily.
Paint a picture, if you will, in terms of what Israelis have gone through for the past several weeks. And I have to ask, does the public support the move for more military action at this point?
Well, I think the public is divided about that. Certainly, some people, Israelis, certainly want to go in. They want to defeat Hamas, get it over. There's a group called the Tikva Forum. Those are the family members of men and women who have fallen in Gaza, and they don't want the war to end before Hamas is defeated. So there's different views about that. But many people believe that really it's been a sort of a psychological torture for Israel. And they're comparing it to a murder or a kidnapping. In a murder, someone dies, but the case is sort of closed. People mourn, but they go on with their lives. A kidnapping is sort of like a theater where and somebody was describing this, Channel 12 reporter, his name is Amit Segal. He said it's a theater which the citizens of a Western democracy are sort of tied to a chair and forced to watch this hostage show. The hostage is on the stage, but the terrorist sort of moves to the backstage and leaves the government as the bad guy, because the government then decides whether this hostage lives or die, and they start seeing the own government as the bad guy, and that's certainly what's happened here in Israel, and he's described it really like a reality show from hell. So it's a psychological torture that really Israelis have been going through for several weeks now.
We know that President Trump issued the ultimatum. Does the Israeli government believe that the Trump administration would give military support, if necessary, to new Israeli battles against Hamas?
Well, certainly they're giving all the munitions that Israel needs to fight its wars, not only in Gaza, but on all fronts. Whether or not special forces will be involved, it remains to be seen. But we'll see exactly what hell is going to be paid really means, and whether or not. He did say that Trump, that is, no boots on the ground, but we don't know about special forces, covert forces as well. We'll see.
Now, Jordan and Egypt are still opposing Trump's plan to take in Palestinian refugees. What is the thinking in the Israeli government about what may happen with the president's plan there?
Well, they're trying to decide, Ephraim, and they spent 4 hours in yesterday's meeting, and circumstances are changing almost daily. Last Saturday's hostage release changed the dynamics with the sight of those 3 men. President Trump's ultimatum changed the dynamics, and I think they're just trying to keep up with events, but doing everything they can to make sure they try to get this right.
All right, our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell, thank you as always for your insights. No, we look forward to checking in with you again in the days ahead. Well, here at home, a hostage held in Russia returned to the U.S. Tuesday night, and President Trump is promising another hostage will be released today. Marc Fogel, an American history teacher, is back in America after talks between the Trump administration and Russia. Fogel was arrested in 2021 and was serving a 14-year prison sentence. His family and supporters said he had been traveling with medically prescribed marijuana. Fogel saying he feels like the luckiest man on earth.
I want you to know that I am not a hero in this at all. And President Trump is a hero. These men that came from the diplomatic service are heroes. the senators and representatives that passed legislation in my honor to get me home are the heroes.
A real honor.
Trump said the terms of the deal for Fogel's release were, quote, very fair, very, very fair, very reasonable. The White House says a deal is a diplomatic thaw that could advance negotiations to end the war in Ukraine. Coming up, evangelical Christians in Ukraine facing persecution amidst the war. Now a documentary shows their struggle and their hope. We're going to have that story for you when we come back. You are watching CBN NewsWatch. White House officials meet with European counterparts this week to talk about ending the war in Ukraine. Nearly 3 years after Russia's invasion, Moscow is gaining ground while Kyiv struggles with troop and weapon shortages. But the war isn't just a military battle. Evangelical Christians in Ukraine are facing growing persecution. A new documentary, A Faith Under Siege, reveals their struggle and how faith leaders are bringing hope in the middle of the war. Our Chuck Holton is on this story.
The Russian war against Ukraine has taken a brutal toll, not just on soldiers, but on Christians who refuse to bow to Moscow's demands. Amid the devastation, a new documentary seeks to expose the truth about religious persecution in Ukraine.
The Christian role in this struggle is so critical.
We come to minister to them, to see them, to listen to them.
It's called A Faith Under Siege.
There's a lot of propaganda out there. Our thesis was you don't fight propaganda with more propaganda, you fight propaganda with truth. And the best truth is personal stories of folks that are there, that have lived this kind of stuff.
The documentary features firsthand accounts of pastors, aid workers, and believers who have been captured, tortured, or forced to flee because of their faith.
The folks that stayed in these war-torn areas to help and to minister to their folks and to others, to provide aid, were really doing some amazing stuff. When the Russians took over and found these evangelicals, they find them very threatening.
CBN News traveled to Ukraine to join former Green Beret Christian Hickey, who moved his family there in 2022 as a missionary to soldiers fighting and dying on the front lines.
We want to give the food hand with a Bible and pray. So we just don't want to give food. We actually want to give Jesus, and that food gives us the access and placement to have a conversation about Jesus.
A Faith Under Siege isn't just about exposing Russian war crimes. It's a call to action for Christians worldwide to pray and stand with their brothers and sisters in Ukraine.
God is our refuge and our strength, a very present help in trouble.
The film is getting exposure at the Museum of the Bible, and producers say they hope to shed light on the crisis and mobilize Christians. Our reporting on the ground matches the claims made in the film that evangelical Christians in Ukraine are facing targeted persecution at the hands of Russian forces. This is the Good News Church in Kramatorsk, and it's only about 10 miles from what is now the front lines of this war. Before the war started, they had about 700 people every week, and most of those people fled after the war started. But now they say they have a new church here because they have about 200 people every week who come that weren't members of the church before the war started, but came looking for help. And this is where they found it.
I think the biggest thing is really praying for the Christians that are caught in this conflict and that they're able to serve as a model for our faith, both in staying strong, providing aid, being a beacon of light to their community, as well as just an end to this war, a just end to this war.
From Ukraine, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
And you can learn more about the movie Faith Under Siege by visiting cbnnews.com. Still ahead, to a much brighter subject. Here in the U.S., we're going to take you to a restaurant in coastal Virginia that serves an unusual combination of international flavors. We're going to bring you the stories coming up right after this. Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. Chef Kyle Folks is the owner of Sate, an American experience, a coastal Virginia restaurant where he blends soul, Asian, and New England flavors. This is food for thought. Let's talk about why you, Chef Kyle Folks, decided that Newport News, Virginia was where you wanted to open a restaurant.
So I just thought to myself, how cool would it be to be able to bring my style of cooking to my hometown?
Because your food is a fusion of Southern, New England, and Asian.
Yes,
so
you nailed it.
Why is a black man doing Southern, New England, and Asian?
Very simple answer. I'm from New England. So growing up, that was very much kind of woven into my fabric and my DNA. Southern, because we're in Virginia, and I really do enjoy those tastes and those flavors. And then the Asian aspect is basically because I was raised by a single mom. And many nights she could not cook dinner. She didn't have the time. And so Chinese takeout was 2-3 nights a week. And so when I think as a chef, you're trying to come into your own and establish yourself and what's going to be unique about you compared to other chefs. And so blending those three things, the New England flair, the Southern flair, and the Asian flair, just seemed to make sense.
Now we ask you to prepare 5 dishes, and we call this food for thought. So we like to know what we're looking at and kind of a bit of the story behind it. I know some of them just from reading about you and listening to you, but what are we looking at?
Yeah, so these are sort of all the fan favorites, I guess, if you will.
Right.
Nana's chicken, I've been cooking that dish for a long time. That is 100% a tribute to my grandmother. She very much was a culinary influence. Next to Nana's is my favorite dish on the menu, the pan-seared sea scallops. Again, how I talked about that connection and what it reminds me of in my past and my kind of emerging culinary career. The shrimp and grits is super popular. Probably the #2 seller on the menu. The Asian sticky ribs are a new addition.
Oh, nice.
And so ribs, right? Country boys love ribs. I grew up, my grandfather cooked mean rib. But what we do different here is it's kind of tossed in an Asian sauce, a hoisin barbecue. We're in Tidewater, so you can't miss out on the crab cake.
Nice.
Jumbo lump crab cakes. And then we got a little bonus run here.
I like
our banana cream cake.
And your story, I mean, because we sit in a beautiful restaurant right now, but you started with humble beginnings. You were working in a hotel. COVID forces you to pivot there. You do a food truck.
Yes. It's a lot.
Food truck, you said, was harder than feeding 3,000 people?
Easy, 100%. I lost my job, and I said, all right, let's try the food truck out. And it's been 4.5 years now running this successful food truck. And all that was sort of another stepping stone to get to where we are now, which is the restaurant. It's amazing what hard work and dedication and a committed team and people that share a common goal can do.
Where does faith come in and God and his timing for all this for you?
Mustard seed faith. Man, you never know when an opportunity or a blessing is going to come. But that mustard seed faith is something that sort of has been instilled in me from a young boy. And there was certainly a time where I felt like giving up. But then I was reminded about that mustard seed faith. And you just got to have belief that your opportunity will come, and that everything that you do along the way is preparing you for it. And the rest is history.
That's Food for Thought, a new feature on Studio 5. Chef Kyle Folks, by the way, tells us expansion is in the works. Check out sateexperience.com to follow his tasty work and story. Be sure to join us this evening for an all-new edition of Studio 5. We're sitting down with Michael Iskander. He is the actor who plays the role of David in the upcoming biblical series, House of David. Plus, recording artist Darius Washington is going to be sharing more than just music. He's going to talk about his journey. We're also talking with John Shabbaglian about his soulful vocals. You can watch this all-new episode of Studio 5 on the CBN News Channel at 8 Eastern. And you can see it on the CBN News app, where you can find it on YouTube. In another entertainment news story, there's a new inspirational film called Boardwalk Winter. It is the story of a woman who discovers she has a short time to live. Instead of feeling defeated, she decides to make the most of it. She rents a place on the beach and sets out to achieve her ultimate goal of getting married before it's too late. The film is written and directed by filmmaker Jonathan Fox and it deals with a painful topic, but he explains why it was so important to add some comedy.
There's a lot of pain in comedy because comedy speaks to the truths within us. Nothing's funny if there isn't truth in it. And you can deal with pain oftentimes very well and effectively through humor. And I think humor also brings out optimism in us.
Jonathan, by the way, is a graduate of Regent's Film School. The film stars Natalie Veeder, Chris Mahar, and Saturday Night Live alum Victoria Jackson, who plays Ms. Kellogg.
Jonathan is awesome because he's a great writer. He's funny and brilliant. And he let me put in my 2 cents, and then he'd go, I go, well, how about if she says this? And he goes, well, how about if she says this? And it was even better. And I was like, yeah, that's even better. So he let me slip Jesus in there.
Studio 5 will have more on the film and sit-down interviews with the cast in the coming days. Be sure and join us for that. We'll be right back with an encouraging word for your Wednesday. Stay with us.
Get your daily quick start from CBN News. A quick read on the important news of the day delivered right to your inbox. Stay current on breaking news, politics, and entertainment. Go to quickstart.news and subscribe today.
Time now for your Wednesday word, and today's word is love. Love is more than a feeling. It is an action. It's also a choice. So choose love. Remember, God chose love, and he took action. He sent his son to die for us and to give us new life. With that word, I encourage you to make this a wonderful Wednesday. Love does make all the difference. That will do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. You can always find more of our programs on the CBN News channel. You can find them there at any time as well as online. That address, cbnnews.com. Take a moment and let us know what you think about the stories you've seen here today or any day. You can do that by emailing us. The address is newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can reach out and touch us on Facebook, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. We'll see you back here, same time tomorrow. Goodbye. God bless.